Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Morton. I'll be facilitating tonight's educational event where we're going to have Teddy Burriss and Mike Brown speaking to us as our experts in both the career space as an umbrella type of topic and also specifically within the LinkedIn space. And so I'll let them give a quick intro here in just a second. Just so you know, we're going to do this couple meeting rules, if you will. As advertised, this is a cameras on event, and the reason is that helps us to interact a little bit better if we see people's faces. And trust me, no judgment. So, regardless, we're not going to be judging how you look or anything like that, or what your background looks like. And it's like Mike was saying, mine's kind of makes me look like I'm in a shadow a little bit. So cameras on, please. So we've got that. We're going to do this as a free-flowing event. So as you have questions that come up, go ahead and ask those. And then if you've got something burning and you don't want to interrupt, which thank you for not doing that, stick it out there in the chat. And I'm going to be curating some of those and feed those in to Mike and Teddy. So we can put faces with names. We'll go ahead and start. Mike, if you can just kind of raise your hand, wave, and say, I'm Mike Brown. Yep. And give a quick intro, and then Teddy, you.
I'm Mike Brown, and I've spent 30 years in corporate human resources roles. And a number of those years, I was responsible for recruiting or talent acquisition. And the last 6 years, I have been an independent coach and consultant and working with people from high school students to potential retirees, helping guide them in their career search and in their leadership search and a number of other things. But in particular, I'm also a certified career coach and have worked with hundreds of folks over the last 6 years to guide them in their search.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Teddy?
Hey, I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm first and foremost, I'm a LinkedIn strategist. And what that means is I help business professionals and others on the use of LinkedIn as a business tool. The other part of what I do is I'm also a career coach, predominantly a volunteer career coach. So I've been doing this. I did outplacement coaching for a few years back in 2005, 6, 7. And then I transitioned to doing volunteer career coaching. And I've been doing that pretty actively since 2008, 2009. So I understand the dynamics. I've been a recruiter, so I understand the dynamics of searching for a job and finding a job. And I also understand the whole dynamic of social networking and social engagement. And thanks for letting me come in and share today.
Great. Thanks, Teddy. So Glenn Goff, I know you just joined, and Rhonda and Sandra, you guys were on. If you guys have your cameras available, if you could turn those on so we can see your faces, that'd be great. So Teddy, let me start with you. Let me throw something out there for you about LinkedIn. And one question that comes up is everyone says you have to be on LinkedIn. How important is your LinkedIn profile in career development if you're not actually looking for a job, for example?
So, Martin, it's a big question that a lot of people go, if I'm not looking for a job, why do I need to have LinkedIn? And LinkedIn is not just for job search. It plays a huge role in job search, but it's not just for job search. It's also for meeting peers and connecting with peers and learning new ideas and discovering knowledge and perspectives that you've never imagined before. It plays a huge role in this, the ability to collaborate and the ability to share and to help others as well. However, I often tell people, just because you're not looking for a job, I mean, I have a full-blown business making millions and millions of dollars every month in my mind, and I'm not looking for a job. But because I'm on LinkedIn, I get opportunities to meet people about new ideas. So you never know who you're going to meet on LinkedIn and the conversation that ensues and where it will take you. So I'm an advocate for, if you're a business professional in any industry, then have a social presence and use it for engaging in conversations.
And I'd like to tag on to that because I agree with everything that you said there, Teddy. And what I would add is some of the folks that I coach will say, well, I try to avoid social media. So, well, I understand that, and I don't have a Facebook page. But with LinkedIn, the majority of the traffic is professional or business or I have found you can sift through it and you can still find value. I've found really great articles. I've found great information and insight, and people that I want to learn more about that I can then go look into deeper. The other two things that I would share is that sometimes you might want to help your team find a candidate, and LinkedIn is a great way to find a candidate. And the last thing is you might not be looking for a job today, but you might be next week, next month, next year. Maybe it's your choice, maybe it's not. And just like Teddy, I had spent 3 years doing outplacement coaching as well. And in my career, I have handed out over 1,000 severance packages. And the most common phrase I heard from those 1,000 plus people that I've interacted with around layoffs is, I never saw it coming. I'm not prepared. What do I do now?
Yeah.
So if you prepare before you need it, you're ready when you need it.
Yeah. Solid point.
Yeah. So yeah, good point. So, some of us on the call say probably most of us experienced that harsh economic downturn just, was it 13 years ago now, 12 years ago, right? And you remember what you may have gone through then. And you ever get somebody that reaches out and wants to connect with you and you haven't heard from them in years, and right then oh, they're probably getting ready to leave their job or they've been impacted. You don't want to be that guy or gal, right? So yeah. I mean, to your point, after that experience, and full disclosure, I went through it and ended up getting impacted and had to find another job, not for my own choosing. But I had already reached out before that even happened, a couple, 3 years before, and made sure I had kept in contact with my network, and one of which was somebody I knew from graduate school, which is how I got the position I'm in now. So I wasn't that guy, thank goodness, but it happens. So Mike, one part of our discussion tonight is about overall, and Teddy, this for you too, but I'll throw it out to Mike first, career development. And I think we wanted to ask our participants what their definition of career development is. And Glenn Goff, I see your name on there. I don't see your face yet. Hopefully your camera works. Don't be shy. But if I can start with you, Glenn, what do you think, or what's your definition of career development? And we can't hear you right now, Glenn. You may be muted.
Career development, in my mind, is that you have to be willing. You have to be willing to be mentored, and you have to be willing to take on criticism in your role. But you also have to be looking not only for your current job, but keep in mind, okay, here's where I'm at now. 5 years from now, do I want to be in the same role, the same function? If I don't, what skills I need to develop? And I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for years. So it's a great tool. You got to be willing to, I think, accept criticism. Have your manager direct you what you need to learn to take the next step in your current career, but also look at, okay, where do I want to be in 5 years? How do I get from point A to point B? And you use LinkedIn as a tool. Maybe if I want to be at this role, or I want to be in a different role, and I know someone who's in a particular field, what skills did you develop to get from point A to point B? And then work on those skills.
Awesome. Other ideas? Sandra, Diane, Rhonda, Cassandra? Definitions of your definition of career development? Thoughts on that?
Well, I can speak, Cassandra Hargrove, and my field of study is textiles. So as most of you probably realize, the ups and downs our textile industry has gone through. So I've seen career development as the opportunities to grow within my industry and to short my skills. Case in point is I just recently become a certified quality auditor. Now I'm about 3 years from retirement. And there are some people who say, why would you do that? You're almost ready to retire. Well, I'm one of those people, when I retire, I'm not sitting in front of the TV with my feet up. I'm going to have something else to do. And even though I'm the quality manager at my plant, I love to audit. It makes me feel like Sherlock Holmes. So I look at using that certification as something, life after my current company, to build myself and to grow. And there's going to be somebody, I believe, who's looking for quality auditors. So I'm doing that now to prepare myself that when I do retire, I've got options. So I see career development as actually understanding that you need options. And just as some of you have already said, sometimes things happen that you didn't see coming. I've been blessed. I've never been without a job, but I was actually for a period of time an HR manager. And I too had to tell some people who never saw it coming that, hey, the industry is going down and we're getting ready to shut this plant down. And as you were saying, that is a hard thing to say to somebody when they don't have options. They don't know what they're going to do.
Yep.
I want to jump in on that. And so, Cassandra, very well put. I think I heard you say, unfortunately, I was an HR manager. I think that's what you said. And so I feel you, my friend. I feel you.
I did not say unfortunately.
Maybe she's a
I had
recovering.
to let some people go, but
I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
The job except for that part. Yeah.
I understand completely. And so I think the two of you had so many really valid points about what career development means, and the fact that it means different things to different people. For some people, it's a job change. For some people, it's a lateral move. For some people, it's developing skills and being better, or certifications and qualifications. For other people, it's just a promotion. I just want to be promoted. That's all, right? For many folks, can be a career path. And I'll tell you this, if that's your question, then you are barking up the wrong tree. Because if you want me to give you a path for your future, that's a high guts to brains ratio, as my dad used to say. And I would have to spend an awful lot of time with you to really pull out who you are, what are your gifts and talents and strengths, and how can we get you a path that's going to get you where you want to go. So it's really about identifying your gifts and talents and strengths through mentoring and feedback, like you talked about, Glenn, through certifications and training, like you talked about, Cassandra, and then looking for those opportunities to use your gifts and talents and strengths in the current job, in lateral moves, and in promotions, and being intentional about it. And the truth is, sometimes it's unintentional.
Yeah.
But the more intentional, like Cassandra is talking about, the more value you are to yourself and to the organization.
Yeah.
And I also think that, I've had a really winding career path, right? So when somebody says, all right, so if you want to be a director, what do you want to be a director of? Well, I don't know, because there's so many things that I could be a director of, whether it's finance or payroll or quality or, claims, or there's just there's so many different areas to work in that I just can't pinpoint and say, I just want to do this. That's.
Yeah. So, Mike, have you read this book?
I know of it. I have not read it yet.
I've read it, Teddy. That's an awesome book.
Yeah. As I heard the conversation and I heard Mike say, if you want me to find you a job, you want, or find you a career, this book, I studied it a few years ago, and it really resonated with me And also it aligns with another word that I'm working on a story about called choice. You need to make a choice for yourself. And if you don't have the knowledge, Joy, to make a choice of what type of director you need to be, you want to be, or where do you want to end up, or what's your next step, then designing your life is a philosophy about how to figure that out. And a huge part, when Bill Burnett and Dave Evans wrote this book, the second half of the book they pulled out of my mind. Because the second half of the book, what they talk about is, in order to discover where you want to go, in order to discover how you want to develop your career, the best way to do that is through conversations with others. You meet people who are dust bunny hunters, and you learn about dust bunny hunting. You meet people who are cat wrestlers, and you learn about cat wrestling. You meet people who are directors of this or directors of that, or who do quality in this space or quality in that space. And then you discover that maybe I did get a degree or a certificate as a phlebotomist, but I discovered I really want to be a manager of phlebotomist, whatever that title is. So designing your life is rich in this whole thought that you either make choices for yourself through conversations with others, or somebody's going to make a choice for you. Mark?
Yeah, I think part of the premise of that book too, Teddy, if I can remember, is it's written by a couple guys that used to teach in the design school out at Cal Berkeley or something like that, and they were basically using a design mentality toward things. Which, if you guys are familiar with that, it's like let's try something and see what happens, and then learn from that experience, and then. Teddy, to what you said, it's a great career question. If somebody says, well, how do I get exposure to opportunities in a different company or new industry?
Yeah.
Aha! What a fabulous question.
Yeah. So, Mike, what do you think about that, Mike?
Well, interestingly enough, when I was a college student, those many years ago, and I was trying to figure out what direction, I went to the career services office and I said, I took this assessment called the Strong Interest Inventory, and it said teaching, marketing, and human resources. And so I talked to them and asked them, who are some alums from NC State who are in those disciplines that I could talk with and learn more about it. And I went through that process, and sitting across the table from the personnel director at the James River paper mill in Berlin, New Hampshire, he was wearing a brown double knit suit with a big knot tie. And he told me all the reasons going into personnel or HR was the dumbest thing I could ever do. And I had a visualization of myself being lifted out of my body, transferred across the desk, and sitting in his chair. And that was where I was supposed to be. Now, fast forward to today. The chief technology officer that I supported in HR in one of my previous companies had a friend of his reach out on LinkedIn and say, my nephew is interested in HR in Raleigh. Do you know anyone who could help him? And his friend, and so the chief technology officer says, my last business partner was really great. Let me put your nephew in touch with him. So he asked me if I would be willing to talk to his nephew. And I said, absolutely. And so his nephew turned it around quick and said, I got the message from my uncle that you'd be willing to talk. Can you meet tomorrow at 2? So at 2 o'clock, I spent an hour with Liam telling him what HR is all about.
Did you wear a double knit suit and a big knot tie?
I was so tempted to do it. I did lean back in my chair and cross my legs and talk down to him and tell him how bad an idea that is.
All right, so real quick. So, hey, Dave Hessler, thank you for joining us. And you weren't here for my preamble at the beginning. It is a we've got this as a video on kind of deal. So if we could see your face, that'd be great if you have access to your camera tonight.
Sure.
Again, none of us are judging. So Mike and Teddy, let me throw it out to you, Teddy, and then Mike, you can tag on or however you want to do this. So during this time, so the guys that are on the call for Mike and Teddy, they are inside people. You know how you always get the tips on what do people who work at Burger King really say about what happens there, right? Well, these two guys can tell you what really happens in a recruiter's mind, in somebody that works in sourcing folks for jobs, anything like that. So what are some of the important aspects of our resumes or LinkedIn profiles for that matter that may be new or different during this time that we're in?
Mike, you go first. All right. So here's my thought. Maybe you guys haven't heard me say this, so buckle up. I think your resume is nothing more than your ongoing obituary, the way most people write them. And I wish that we would start adopting new ways of marketing ourselves versus our ongoing obituaries. Now, that being said, a lot of people treat their LinkedIn profile the same way. They copy and paste their obituary in there. What I recommend people think about is you're marketing yourself, and you're not just engaging with an HR person who wants to see your obituary. So if you're going to market yourself, then you should think brochure instead of resume. And you should think about writing it with two very purposeful thoughts in mind. Number one, you are a single product. You're not 10 different products. So pick the product that you really want to be and market that product. I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm a LinkedIn strategist. I do not market myself as a career coach. I do that work. I don't market myself as a leadership coach. I do that work. I don't market myself as a business consultant and a business mentor. I do that work. I market myself as Teddy Burriss, LinkedIn strategist, trainer, and coach. So pick the brand of Dave, Diane, Antonio, etc. that you want to be, and that's the brochure you build. Secondly, once you know what that brand is, you then need to figure out who is interested in this brand. And so you write your brochure for the buyer, not the broker. The broker would be HR. The buyer would be the department head or the business owner, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm glad we're recording this because this is the first time I've said it this way. And so write your brochure focused on the buyer, knowing that the broker is going to see it and they're going to understand it in some context. But if you're only going to rely on your brochure, resume, or LinkedIn profile to get you a job, it's not going to work as well in 2021 as it may have worked in 1970. Because today is all about who you know and who knows you. So have your brochure, focus on the product that you want to be, speaking to the buyer that buy that product, but don't just rely on that. Mike, thoughts?
So 100% agreement. The phrase I use is a targeted marketing brochure. Mm-hmm. Same exact concept. And when I'm talking with folks about write it so it's targeted towards your target audience, the buyer, there are a couple of things that I want to remind you of. One is that most of the buyers hate the interview process because they've had a bad experience, and it's a pure Pavlovian thing. It hurt the last time I did a hire, and so I don't ever want to have this experience again, but I have to do it. And so they're going to try to follow the path of least resistance, which is if they can get a referral, that's their preference.
Yeah.
And then they're going to try to find someone that looks and sounds like them because they believe that they're great at their job. And so the more that you use my words on your resume to apply for my job, the more I think you sound and look like me. The next thing is, especially in your disciplines, the people who are your target audience are technical, detail-oriented individuals. And so they need technical, detail-oriented data to make a decision on who they want to interview. And if your resume has numbers on it, you will set yourself apart. And I don't mean September 23rd, 2009. I mean, improved the process by 27%, increased cycle turns by 350, decreased cost by $250,000 annualized. Because what I want to know is not that you had the same job description as everybody else who had your job title that you just copied and pasted into the 4 bullets you put on your resume, your obituary. I want to know what value you brought to the process and why you are the one of 7 that I phone screen out of the 100 people who applied.
Yeah.
Can I get an
Yeah,
amen?
Yeah, amen. Well, and the other thing, Mike, is hiring managers, would you say it's a true statement? It's kind of like, I think you said this, but this is different words. They're really looking to avoid, you said path of least resistance, but also you're trying to prove to them, I'm not a risky hire. Because if I'm not a risky hire, then you're not going to have to go through this process again. So you got to convince them, I'm the guy that's going to be there for a while.
So there's 2 things that you're going to fit in here.
Yep.
That's number 1. And number 2 is so in the list of things I hate to do, the one at the top of the list is go through the interview process. And just below it is train the new person. And so if you've done what I want you to do, and you can explain that with value on your resume or your LinkedIn profile, then now I have decreased my risk substantially.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah. And I'll offer another piece about that, Mike, too, is that if you're trying to show the buyer that you have everything that he wants, you cannot be trying to appeal or to what's the word? I think the word's appeal. You're not trying to appeal to 5 different types of buyers. You can't be focusing on, this and that and this and that, because you can't be everything to everybody, and you don't want to do all of that stuff.
Right. That's right. And so one of the first conversations I have with folks and talk about, you need to customize your LinkedIn profile is a little bit broader, but your resume needs to be customized to the job. And people will say, you mean I need to have a different resume for every job I apply for? And the answer is very simple. Only if you want to get one of them.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Very true.
Yeah.
I had multiple resumes. I'm looking for a job. I had for multiple positions, a different resume.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, spot on. So in that, somewhat related to that, now you said, okay, I've got my brochure, and I know kind of what my brand is, and I know that's overused a little bit these days in terms of a cliche, but it's basically, from my standpoint, who my colleagues would say Mark Morton is this, right? So you kind of get a sense of that, and you've sense checked it with even some of your peers. Now you're starting to look, do you need to kind of go incognito on LinkedIn or unconnect, or how you can make yourself anonymous, so that folks that you're working with can't see that you're looking, or can tell that you're looking, or something like that?
No, you don't. So, but here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to start connecting with every recruiter in town. That would be, if I started seeing your network and, I see you got 10 recruiters in there. Now, by the way, it would take a really anal manager to do that research to figure it out, but I could teach people how to do that. But if I see that the only people you're connecting with is recruiters, then there's a red flag. You've got to, you can't ramp up your LinkedIn activity and all of a sudden start engaging with everybody on LinkedIn that's in different industries or different companies, because that would be a red flag. What you've got to do is be purposeful about your connections and your conversations. And again, you typically don't want to talk to the broker, HR. You generally want to talk with your peers, assuming you're staying in the same sandbox. You want to talk to your peers in different companies. Now that's just networking. But when you connect with your peers in different companies, and then you privately message them and go, hey, Mark, I'd love to have a conversation with you one day. And then you have a private conversation. There's no flag associated with that. And so again, I'll reiterate, as long as you're not blowing up LinkedIn with, hundreds of new connections and, they're all recruiters and hiring managers, or as long as you're not rapidly engaging on content with a competitor, then there's really no flags that would happen for the most part. Mike, you have a thought on that?
I agree with that. And so that's why it's important to be active on LinkedIn and connecting with people. And even if it's as simple as recognizing people's birthdays, work anniversaries, changing of jobs, and acknowledging those things with folks on an ongoing basis instead of only when you're in a need. There's a guy I worked with who was in finance at a previous employer, and I hear from him 5 days after he loses his job, and that's the only time I ever hear from him. And so when I get a text from him, and I can't even say his first name, but I get a text from him 5 days after he loses his job. And he's reached out to me 3 times in the last 6 years.
And then he messages me.
So one of the aspects of networking that's so closely tied into career development, and it's connected really to what both you, Cassandra, and Glenn talked about, is if you're meeting with and chatting with peers in similar industries or similar job types, one of the best questions to ask is, what are some attributes and knowledge that are important to be successful in your environment? And what are the things that I need to do if I wanted to make a change of industry or to position myself down the road? It's so much easier and more productive to have those conversations when you don't need a job than when you do need a job, because there are 2 things that the recruiter, the broker, hate to see: bitter and desperate.
Yeah.
And if you're desperate, I don't want you. Oh, I'm willing to take a $20,000 pay cut because I just want to get my foot in. Just stop it. I know I was a director, but I'm fine to be an individual contributor in your company, but stop it. Just stop it. And the bitter comes out when I ask you why you left your last job. If you ain't over it yet, then you're not ready to talk to me.
Yeah.
Go see a counselor if you have to. But you show up bitter and you just lost a good opportunity.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, Mike is not a counselor, so just so you know that.
And I did play one on TV.
Yeah.
So real quick, we've got a question in the chat about when we talk about the importance of being active on LinkedIn. What exactly does active mean? How active? And I'll just say personally, I've always read, try to post something or put something out there once a day, try to do something along those lines. But you hear different things that about that. So opinions on that, Teddy, Mike?
Well, I would start with active. The level of activity has to be regulated by your ability to sustain it. If you go out there and I got a buddy of mine, his name's Brian Mossier. Brian, at the end of last year, committed to a daily video. That's a huge undertaking. Daily video.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. And they're 5-minute videos, but I'm telling you, because I do it for a living, that's a huge undertaking. He's sticking to it. He's 100 days in, or whatever the number is, and he's still doing it. Okay. But he's had to alter how he does it. He's recording 5 every Saturday, but he's producing a video every day and sharing it every day. Sustainability is important. So what is expected is what you do. What is expected is what you do. I don't expect anything from them. That's what they do. So what you want to do is define the expectations based on what you think the value is. So let's talk a little bit about value. Value is, am I engaging on content that's of interest to me, so I'm learning something from it? Value is, am I making new connections with people who are interesting and relevant to me, maybe have ideas? So should I make more connections? Value is, do I care about my LinkedIn network? And is it worthwhile for me to say happy birthday, happy career anniversary, happy new career shift? If you care about your network, the value is spend a little bit of time engaging on those notifications. So how important is it to be active? We expect what you do. And if you want people to see you more often, if you want people to be aware of you more often, then be willing to invest a little bit more. It's not huge. I often tell the clients that pay me to teach them, do something 4 times a week. 4 times a week, do something. I don't care if you spend an hour every Wednesday. You could spend 15 minutes a day. But do something on a regular basis. Show up, be seen, be respected, and be respectful. Mike, thought?
I agree. I would just leave it at that. So we can, unless Joy, did that answer your question?
It did. Yes, that was excellent. Thank you.
Well, and the one thing too, Mike and Teddy, you also, but from your perspective, let's say you've got your recruiter hat on. What do they pick up from activity off of LinkedIn? What goes through their head? Does that add anything to their perception of you? Now, obviously, if you put some kind of wacky stuff out there, that's one thing, and wacky's to be defined by whoever. But wacky to me would be something just like, well, I couldn't even tell you at this point. But what do recruiters view that as?
For me, it varies depending on the job and the company and the industry. And so there are some companies that they don't care as long as you're out there and you have relevant information about yourself. There are other companies that if you're doing something that's political, left or right or left, they're going to be steering away from you, and so the full on answer is it depends. So what's important, go back to what Teddy said, is you have to know your target audience.
Yeah. I'll add a little bit more to that, Mike. Excuse me, Mark, as well. I won't tell you who this lady is. I recently did a YouTube video, so you might be able to find who this lady is in the YouTube video. She allowed me to reference her name and her profile in the video, including her activity. This lady is a professional and very well respected in her industry. When I looked at her LinkedIn activity, it was kittens, puppies, mice, gerbils, dogs, cute puppy pictures, cute cat pictures, All she was doing was liking all of these animal pictures that one other lady was sharing. And the other lady sharing is not an animal person. She's another professional in another space. So when people see your activity on LinkedIn or any other social media, and it's totally irrelevant, specifically LinkedIn, and it's irrelevant to who you are, what you're all about, there's no opportunity for your brand, your professionalism to be discovered. So think about, Dave, I don't want you going out there liking a bunch of cat pictures, dude. It won't help your brand. Here's two other thoughts in that perspective. Thought leadership.
Yeah.
Maybe you can build a brand by being a thought leader in your space, or the other word is an influencer in your space. LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Quora, Reddit, etc., are platforms where that if you can sustain the activity, you can develop a thought leadership or influencer brand of yourself. And that can elevate you not only in your community, but your industry. And then people start talking about you in a positive way if you're building a thought leadership in the right space. And that can elevate you to recruiters. So people go, oh my God, you got to check out this dude named Antonio. He is spot on with all the stuff he talks about in regards to XYZ.
Yep.
Mark.
Good deal. So we've got about 15, 16 minutes left. I want to open it up even more. People have been sitting there nodding heads. That's great. Everybody's kind of taking this in. But I'm curious is what's the big question? What's the main reason you joined tonight? Has it been answered already, or is there something really burning that you want to get out there that you haven't had an opportunity to do? And we don't have to go round robin. I'll just kind of pause there for a sec.
It's amazing information. As a manager myself at Merck, I find everything you all said. You have to agree with a lot of that, but it's true. For myself personally, I want to take my career to the next level. I want to reach that executive level role, or like a director and manager. So I believe with the information and the open dialogue will enable me to reach those goals. And also, I'm content of what I share and also in the professional setting. More specifically, now I'm gonna be even more cognizant of just something simple, but I have to share. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and you were breaking up just a little bit, Antonio, but I think I picked up on the gist of it. It sounded like, taking some of the things from tonight, you want to, let's say, go up the corporate ladder a little bit more, build your career in that way, more responsibility, more leadership opportunities. And I'll just tell you from my personal experience, here's a big piece for people that want to get on that track. And Mike and I have had discussions about this, about my own career, and I'm still a mess. Not that it's Mike's problem. It's just he's got a mess to work with here.
I'm not a counselor. Remember that part.
He's not a counselor, and I got all confused. But in your job side, let's say Merck is the place for now. Finding a person in the leadership chain who can be an advocate for you. And not necessarily a mentor. A mentor to me is a little bit different. They can be the same, but somebody that can advocate for you and say, when they're in their inner circle conversation, your name comes up periodically in a positive sense about how you can plug in and help them solve a problem or how you can add to the organization. So it's kind of a tough thing to do, but it's also part of that whole networking thing. And we've got some other questions about, how do we network in a virtual environment now? And honestly, guys, I think it's easier because you don't have to try to drive somewhere and meet somebody at a coffee shop or something. You just do it like this. I mean, it's better. But that's been my observation. If you can find an advocate, and I've seen it at my job where we got some good leaders, they don't have an advocate, so they're hitting that ceiling. I mean, they're just not getting over that hump.
Right.
So that's something I've observed. Good deal. Anybody else? Burning questions. Diane, looks like you might have one.
Oh, somebody muted your phone while you were there.
Okay, yeah, I'm
There you go.
I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I was wondering, because of the COVID and the shutdowns and all, has anything really changed dramatically in career development because of the lockdowns, because of things going virtual? Or do you think we'll be going back to more normal types of activities?
So I do not believe that what we saw in the end of 2019, how we operated as and how we engaged, how we learned, how we grew, I don't believe we'll go back to that exact scenario. I think we have transitioned into different ways. Nothing, it won't be significant. I mean, we'll be back in real life and fist bumping and hugging, et cetera, one of these days. But I truly believe, and I see it every day, that this the opportunity for us to work, more of us to work remote, has grown significantly. The opportunity for us to network virtually has grown significantly. People are more comfortable. Yes, I hear that we're Zoomed out and WebExed out, but we're more comfortable in these scenarios. I also know that networking has become more virtual as well. LinkedIn has grown significantly, the activity on LinkedIn significantly. If none of you have ever heard of Clubhouse, you know, there's new apps. There's one called Clubhouse that is now the newest rage. I don't know that it can sustain itself, but it's a new way to virtually network with voice and not no video. A new way to meet new people. Social media is growing. So I don't believe that we'll go back to exactly the things that we did at the end of 2019, first of 2020. But I do believe that what we've learned and the processes that we've developed to do things virtually will continue to grow. And one day we'll fly a drone on Mars. I do believe that'll happen one day. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you on the fact that we've demonstrated that we can do more virtually over the last year plus, right? And one of the biggest reasons that many managers wanted people in the office was that if I could see you and your fingers were on the keyboard, I knew you were working. And we've had to come up with other ways to measure value other than attendance and tardiness, right? And so the other thing that's happened is companies are now recognizing that their candidate pool just grew substantially. And I'm talking to more and more clients who are taking an approach that I want this skill set and I want this education and this certification. I don't care where they are. That's more important than they sit in my office. Mm-hmm. And then the other piece of development, and I've done a couple of projects with companies, including some very large technology companies that you're familiar with, where we're changing the way people learn at work. So instead of having certainly you're not coming into a classroom, but even instead of coming into a Zoom room or a WebEx room for a half a day or whatever, we're going to feed you content through articles, through Harvard Business Review summaries, through Get Abstract, TED Talks, videos, other sources of learning content for you to absorb on your time. And then we set a deadline that says on April 30th, the team's going to get together and we're going to talk about application. You're going to bring in a real life example of what you just studied, and we're going to talk about how we actually do it on our team. What does it look like? And we're going to do real life scenario instead of the hypothetical stuff that was often done in the classroom. And what I'm finding is that the adoption rate of learning, especially the soft skills learning, which is harder to measure adoption rate, is ramping significantly with that approach. And you can do that virtually.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Diane? And does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add too, and it was kind of back to what I was talking with Antonio about. One area that I think is going to be tough is, you got to think about company culture. So some company cultures, they like the rubbing of elbows within the special cliques within the company, and that's kind of how you get into that leadership chain. And you know what I'm saying? It's the schmoozing and all that kind of stuff. Of course, that's going to be tough virtually. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, how people adapt to that too. Absolutely.
Mark, I just want to say one thing, Mark. I never finished my bachelor's degree, but I've climbed the career ladder pretty well in my career. I made advancements, but I did it by networking, mentoring, learning, reaching out to different people. So really my goal when I retire, I'll probably consult. I don't have a bachelor's degree, but I'll have 20 years of QA auditing in all aspects, from biologics to APIs to sterile manufacturing, solid dose. So I'll stay busy. That's all because I network.
Yeah.
And I use my skill sets to get the network and to learn and to make the small jumps. So
Yeah.
And you keep that network warm.
right.
If you even have the smallest inkling of doing something independent.
Right.
Because that's how you get started.
That's how I got the job where I'm at now. That's how I got the job at ASI. I was laid off at Catalent, and then I actually worked as a hosting audits in Albuquerque with Cardinal Health before I moved to Raleigh. Well, I made a client who worked at ASI. We did their clinical trial material. Made a connection, stay in contact with her. I was in Newark, New Jersey. She called me and said, "Hey, we got a position for an auditor in ASI. Are you interested?" Just out of the blue, she calls me. So lo and behold, I've been here almost 13 years now. So it's all within, whatever role you're in. It's all the power of the network is really what is driving the industry. Network. That's
Glenn, I'm right there with you. I went to University of Maryland, College Park for one semester in 1976, and it wasn't going to work for me for lots of reasons based on my life at that time. Every job I've gotten has been through networking. I've never had an interview. I've never filled out a job application. I've never had a background check or a drug test. Every job.
Here we are.
Right.
Here we are.
So if everybody got a degree, that's great, but there's not the end all be all. They really what I found from when I got my positions, they want to know, can you do this job? Do you know how to do this role? Degree or no degree, can you bring me value to my company? And I checked the boxes, and I've been here. I've started as an auditor. I've gone to the manager of the quality auditing group for 4 years. Now I've taken over the global program the last 4 years. So it's all about, can you get the soft skills? Can you make the connections within the company, and are they comfortable with you in these roles?
Yeah. Now I will offer you, Glenn. I'm looking on the screen here, and there are a lot of people who are doing stuff that Teddy can't do, because I didn't learn how to do that. So, and I accepted that. In 1975, my career counselor told me to be an air traffic controller. So I applied to Embry-Riddle and ended up going to Chapel Hill, and then I couldn't sustain that. But my point of sharing that is not that I beat the system, but that networking is vital.
Yep.
So we got about 3 minutes left. Any other burning questions from folks that are on the call? Sandra or Dave or Rhonda? Sandra? Anything you guys wanted to ask that you just hadn't had a chance?
Yes, I have one question.
Yeah.
Concerning the number of people that you have linked in to you, and I don't know if you had discussed this topic. Sometimes people have 100 or less connections, and then some have 500. And it seems the goal, I guess, the people that really want to be LinkedIn active, they have 500 or so. So what is your take on that, from either just being active or job hunting, or do the numbers matter?
The numbers don't matter, Sandra. What does matter is the value of your network. So I have a philosophy. It's called purposeful networking. You should every day be looking for a way to do purposeful networking. I dropped my LinkedIn profile in here, as well as Mike dropped his LinkedIn profile in here. I encourage you all, you don't need to connect with me, but follow me. I'm hoping that I'll share something that might be useful to you. If you want to connect, that's fine as well, but do it purposefully. Do it for a reason. It's not about collecting business cards. Okay.
Right.
It's about meaningful connections and focus on that moving forward.
Yeah, so good point. In the vein of some of this conversation, I put my link out there. If you guys want to take just a minute or so and post your links out there, if you want to get connected to folks on this call, that'd be a great way to kind of wrap things up. I'm going to go to Mike next, and then Teddy to wrap up, and then we'll go from there. Be respectful of folks' time. So, Mike, any last words for this call? Not in general.
Well, I think that you asked about the importance of LinkedIn, and everything that I have read and studied, and just my own interactions. Company recruiters, if that's one part of your target audience, company recruiters use LinkedIn more than all other online resources combined, which is yet another reason why having a presence and connections on LinkedIn are important. The other thing that I will close with is to reiterate the importance of your career development needs to be your career development in tracking to your gifts, talents, and strengths in a way that fits your lifestyle also. I want to be a director of something is lovely. Why? And director of what? And so knowing your why, like Simon Sinek talks about, is also an important part of that. And when I got to the point of asking myself, why do I want to be the head of HR? I realized that I didn't. And I realized I wanted to stop at this level instead of going to that level, because that was a better fit for me. So it's got to be you.
Teddy? Final thoughts.
The tagline for my business is that it all starts with a conversation. I don't care what your goal is, to find a new boyfriend, a new girlfriend, a wife in another city, or a different job, or a new car. Mark liked that wife in a different city thing. That worries me. It all starts the conversation. So look for ways to connect with people. Look for ways to get into conversations. Look for ways to share. The title of the book is Networking for Mutual Benefit, which means networking isn't just all about me getting what I want. It's about helping others. And when you're helping others along the way, call it life, God, or karma, stuff will come your way. So strike up conversations, connect with people, and help people. And to my final point is, thank you for letting me share today.
Yeah. And thank you for letting me be a part of this as well.
Thanks, guys. So, Wendy, just to recap, you've made a recording. I think Wendy's going to get that over to Teddy, who's then going to make a YouTube link. And then we will put that out on our local ASQ section 113 My ASQ site. So if you need help on how to navigate that, shoot us a note. And we'll post it there if you want to go back and listen to any of this. Thanks again. We'd love your feedback on what worked well and what we could make better on this. But for now, we will wrap up. And Wendy, since you're hosting, I'll let you end the call. But thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having a good evening,
Really
guys.
appreciate everybody.
Have a good one.
Our next event, which is on May 19th, as far as education, and that's sponsored by the Women Equality, and it's called Powering Through the Pandemic, where we're actually going to have people who are mental health professionals, as well as people in different career sectors, talking about how the pandemic has impacted them. So I think it's going to be a great discussion. You can also win an Amazon gift certificate. It's going to be a very different format. It's going to be cameras on. There's activities. So it should be a lot of fun. But thank you both, Teddy and Mike. This was great.
Thank you, guys.
Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
I think Teddy's due a visit for a conversation from your husband since he's never been drug tested and never met.
My husband's a narcotic agent, so maybe I should.
Stop it.
Make sure you put that on the video.
See
ya.
y'all later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.